today's parenting tip is what to do when your child does something and you're kind of taken aback and you say something like, "You're grounded for a month," which ends up being harder for you. And after about 10 minutes, the child kind of forgets what they're grounded about anyway. So it's about kind of what to do when you don't know what to do, when you don't know what strategy to use, or you don't know how to respond. And we sometimes end up saying things that are unreasonable, and then we end up having to go back on our word or be inconsistent or follow what we said, which isn't helpful or easy. So what we want to do is exactly what we tell children to do, is to stop and think about your actions before you act, you know. And how many times have we said to our child, "What were you thinking? When you did that, didn't you think before you did that?" And so we sometimes forget that those same skills, all the skills we're teaching our children, are so they can be happy and healthy and productive adults. So those skills still work as happy, healthy, productive adults. So taking a minute to think about your response is a great way to do several things. It helps with several things. One thing it helps with is it actually gives you time to think about what the appropriate response is, what the appropriate consequence or whatever. Should this child be grounded? Do they have something major coming up that being grounded from would be a big problem? Can we put off the grounding? Should it be a different consequence? Should they write a letter of apology to someone, or should we go do it together? Just all these things. It actually gives you time to go through and think about, how is this child going to get this lesson best? Because ultimately it's about teaching our children lessons, how to better be a happy, healthy, and respectful and productive adult. So how are they going to learn that best? Yeah. And you would think, end of story. That's why we stop and think. But it also, right? But it also does a couple of other things. The other thing it does, or one of the other things it does, it allows the child to sit in a little bit of their own anxiety. So, yeah, so your child, throws a toy, and you say, "Honey, I need to stop and think a little bit about what I need to do because you threw that toy." The child isn't going to go back to playing. They're going to start ruminating, like adults do too. Well, wait, what is she going to do? What's going to happen next? What's he thinking of doing? What's my punishment going to be? Are they going to forget? What should I do? So it gives them some time to reflect on their own behavior and to think about their behavior, rather than what my daughter used to say to me is, "Why can't you just spank me and get it over with?" Right? And that's when I went,
Right.
"I'm not a spanker anyway," which is why she complained, "Can't you just spank me and get it over with?" Which gives the child such a quick resolution, and they're like, "Well, I guess if I throw a toy, I get a spanking. It's kind of worth it." But if they're not sure what's coming, and they have that time to reflect and say, "How serious is this? Am I going to get, a big consequence, a little consequence? How mad are they at me? Did I do something wrong?" So it gives them that time to stop and have kind of helpful anxiety, which helps them actually reflect on their behavior.
Right.
So, and again, sometimes we come up with those quick solutions and the child's are like, "Phew, got it done."
The other thing that I love about this is that it helps to avoid the co-parenting problem where
Mm-hmm.
one parent decides on a consequence and the other parent has to fulfill it. So
Yeah.
when dad says no TV for a week, and mom, or whichever way it goes, the at home parent then has to rethink how they do the afternoons when they're trying to have their one quiet hour of the day,
Mhm.
and that's usually when they
Mhm.
um and so if you tell your kid, you know what, that wasn't okay, I'm a little upset and I need a minute and we're going to talk about this later,
Mhm.
it gives you a chance to check in with your partner and whoever your co-parents are,
Mhm.
and make sure that you can provide a united front, and make
Mhm.
sure that it's not something that, like you said, punishes you as much more than the kid.
Right. There are so many times that, yeah, that punishment is actually a punishment for the parent and the kid, because
Yeah,
there are certain things we need to do for our kids. We're still going to, feed them and clothe them, and
right,
taking away their screens at that one time where you actually need them to be safe and occupied so that you can do whatever you need to do is a punishment for you, not for them. So
right.
this isn't about punishment, but I do remember one of my child's first jobs was at 15, so they couldn't drive. And
Hmm.
they worked 3-hour shifts, and the job was about 15 minutes away.
Mm.
So I ended up working 2.5 hours so that my child could work 3 hours. And again, I wanted to say, just stay home. I'll pay you, because I had to drive them there, drive back, or try to find something to do near their workplace. Drive back, wait an
Yeah,
hour, drive back, pick them, drive them. Oh my goodness. Um, uh,
yep.
and in that case, because it's a lesson about responsibility and holding a job, I was willing to do that. I was about to say I was happy to do that. Wasn't particularly happy to do that, but it was worth
It
the
was
lesson to
not
do
very
that.
convenient at all, but yeah,
No.
absolutely.
So you make the next good point is that besides stopping and thinking, giving us time to actually think about it, it does give us time to check in with whoever is also parenting our child with us. Or also, like, look up resources, ask a friend, what do you do when your child, what are some ideas? I'm a little stumped, which again is what we ask children to do. You
Hmm.
didn't know how to do this, why didn't you ask? You know, or you had this issue and you just jumped in and did something. If you'd asked, I would have someone could have showed you an easier way to do it. And we go like,
Right.
ugh, why did you even do that? Well, modeling that for them helps them understand that this is a life skill. This again isn't a punishment. This is a life skill we're teaching. That when you're upset, and that's another key word, is we actually lose IQ points when our emotions are very high. For some people, it's a different level for different people. Many people can have low to medium emotions, and it has no effect on their ability to process and think and make decisions uh, and use their logical brain. When our emotions get really high, our brain kind of goes like, nope, I'm going to send all the energy to that emotional part, and I'm going to kind of not pay attention to that logical part. And they've done studies, and I'm always curious about exactly how they do them, where they have people take IQ tests and then take a similar test when they're upset, actually,
Hmm.
when they're thinking of something that upsets them. And their IQ, again, they when they do these experiments, they set it up so, it the data makes sense, so
Right.
even thinking about something that makes people upset, their IQ goes down. So
Hmm.
if your IQ goes
That
down
actually
when you're
explains a lot.
right, right, what were you thinking? Well, I wasn't thinking. I was only feeling. And I don't think
Hmm.
feelings and thinking are opposites. And I think our goal is to do both at the same time. But if one gets too big, then the other one does tend to shut down. Similar to logic, our logic, that's what's called going down a rabbit hole. Our logic gets so big, and then we say, hold on a minute. How does this feel? I'm talking myself into something, or I'm talking myself out of something that I have a strong feeling about, and I need to check in with that feeling too. So, making decisions in high emotions is usually it's usually better to wait till those emotions are lower And at least you can check out whether you have different thoughts when your emotions are lower than you did when the emotions were high.